we will discuss the achievements done by the ESPON 2030, and the idea is to have a deeper insight into what is done, what are the tools have been provided for the planners, and how this could be used or transmitted to the next ESPON program. So we would like to discuss how to create a bridge from ESPON 2030 to ESPON 2020. And to introduce the session, I would like to ask the Gavin, floor is yours, to speak about, so what's in the program? Sorry. Okay, applied research themes. This is one of the most complicated research done by ESPON program.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm been tasked this afternoon with giving some thoughts on the progress on development of European territorial evidence by ESPON applied research. So I'm going to speak just briefly and give a short presentation on the progress and some thoughts for the future ahead and some lessons learned over the last program. And then afterwards, I'm going to hand over to my colleagues Michaela and Peter to discuss further target analysis tools and outreach activities for the next program. So apologies, probably many of you have seen this presentation before, but for the benefit of those who haven't, just to recap on what objectives the applied research had for this current program was to provide comparable regionalised information for benchmarking in the European context on territorial phenomena and trends, to address territorial development potential and challenges for regions and cities, support assessment of territorial impact of policies, territorial impact assessments, identification of potential synergies and conflicts among different policies at the EU level and territorial assets, and building an evidence base, facts and evidence about territorial structures, trends and perspectives. So in the new program, this is priority one of the current program. In the new program, this will become specific objective one, and it will have a budget of approximately 15.5 million euros for carrying out this type of research. So it will still be a major part of the new program in the coming years. Just to give some facts and figures of the calls launched in the last program, 6 calls, there was 98 proposals submitted, there was 25 projects in total over a number of years each, 181 research partners from all over Europe, 50 members of sounding boards and 191 case studies. So you can see it was quite a wide range and breadth of scope across the entire territory of Europe, and also at a number of different topics. Just to skip back, you can see here this is a Wordle of the type of, to give a flavour of the type of research topics that we delved into. You can see there cities, territory, obviously governance, globalization, crisis. You know, some of the main topics which we've grappled with over the last few years. Just to skip forward, out of those 25, just to pick a few, especially for the benefit of people who may be coming new to this. This is one of the most recent projects that I've actually managed myself inside the coordination unit. The economic crisis and resilience of regions was run, lead partner was the Cardiff University, and it was a very interesting project in terms of, and a very relevant project in terms of the most recent crisis in Europe and how the territorial impact of that crisis across Europe and how they affected different regions differently. You can see there to identify territorial impact. Obviously the main objective of identify the territorial impact of the crisis, explore why some regions were more resilient to the crisis than others, identify appropriate territorial policy responses, so through case studies to understand how different regions responded and grappled and coped with the crisis, and to elaborate, and this was developed into an evidence brief, which territorial observation, which has the main findings of that in terms of its relevance for policymakers in particular. Another one, secondary growth polls, again, is look at secondary centres across Europe, run by lead partner Michaela Parkinson. Review policy towards secondary cities at the EU level, which secondary cities were performing well across different parts of Europe, why, and how much has policy affected their performance. And again, a series of case studies to identify tangible lessons, all aimed at policy making. And then again, to take a different thing out to the different topic outside of the territorial into the marine. This was the ESDOR project. Again, was the main objective of that project was to map different types of sea use across Europe and develop a typology of coastal marine regions, identify developmental opportunities and constraints, environmental constraints and social constraints for different coastal marine regions. And this whole topic of blue growth has become a major topic within European policy. Explore best practice for terrestrial marine governance and interactions, provide guidance and advice on how these critical assets can be effectively and democratically managed, and suggest further areas for research. So this is, obviously very relevant in the context of the rollout of the Maritime Spatial Planning and the Marine Strategy Directive. So these are the type of, just to give a flavour of some of the topics that we've been addressing over the last few years, and just to give some lessons learned. And obviously these will be applicable for the new programme as we move forward, and maybe help inform some of the discussion that we have here this afternoon. It's obvious that with the scope and the breadth of research that we've undertaken, that we have developed a very significant pan-European territorial evidence base. But there's always room for improvement, and obviously one of the most relevant improvements that we need to make, and it's something which was outlined again this morning, we need more focused project specifications. So I think one of the criticisms of ESPON research terms of reference and scopes of project was that perhaps they were a little bit too broad, and they need to be narrowed down to make more focus so that we can get more clearer and crisper policy relevant messages out of them. So they need to be set within an overall policy narrative and more coherent structure. Shorter time frame for deliveries. Obviously, another criticism of ESPON applied research is that it takes a long time to get a project set up, to undertake the projects, to deliver results, to do the analysis. So we're looking at maybe delivering shorter time frames, so that so by the time a particular issue hasn't left the policy arena at a high level, that we can actually contribute to the debate through applied research. Again, some of the deliverables need to be made easier for policymakers to digest. So through swift transfer of concrete results into policy arenas, helping to shape the policy agenda. So obviously one of the things we're looking at is developing policy briefs and papers, short papers, concise information, and in easy to understand language that can go straight into policy making process. Another innovation that we're looking at developing as part of the ESPON 2020 is developing project support teams to actively track projects. So these would be groups drawn from the monitoring committee, from the European Commission, to actively track projects to make sure that the results from an academic and a scientific perspective are adequately reflecting policy demand. And then a part of that is to develop further greater in-house scientific capacity within the ESPON EGTC itself to ensure that there's a high level of consistency and the results are robust and there's a significant amount of academic rigour to them. So these are some of the lessons that we've learned, some of the feedback we received from various evaluations carried out through consultation processes with yourselves and others across Europe. And it's important for the applied research side to get this right, because it's going to provide the framework and the foundation for all those other priorities. It's going to incorporate 50% of the budget for the next program. So I'm going to hand over to Michaela now, and to talk about target analysis.
Thanks, Gavin. Good afternoon, everyone. I will do, as Gavin did for Priority 1, I will also run through quickly Priority 2 projects. As most of you know, this was a new type of projects that ESPON started with in the 2013 program. and quite specific in its setup and also in its implementation. And the objectives of these projects was to provide, as actually Priority 1 projects also did, provide evidence and knowledge by making use of ESPON results, but looking concretely at specific regions, sometimes also cities or larger territories, like also maybe macro regions, from a European perspective. And by doing that, giving these regions or cities the possibility to actually learn something new about their situation compared to other regions. And by getting the results of this research, also then maybe finding some competitive advantages for developing further strategies for their development. Then another angle that we pursued with this type of project was to also improve the usefulness of existing ESPON results by testing some new approaches, some innovative options also, applying existing ESPON results, for instance, from a previous scenario project, and trying to use these scenarios on a regional level, and also to work together with other cooperation programs to provide analytical support and evidence based on ESPON results. Here again, a broad overview on the different issues that we covered with the projects we implemented under Priority 2. So you can see some of them addressed specific types of regions. A number of them actually dealt with cities, where also we had city representatives as stakeholders involved, where we had national ministries as stakeholders, where we were looking, for instance, also to mention just one example, at the impact of regional airports on the development possibilities of peripheral regions in Europe. So it's really quite a large spectrum of topics that we were looking at. And here the figures apparently were bouncing around a bit. We had altogether 23 projects here, with research partners of 104 different institutes, 117 stakeholders being involved in these projects, and also altogether 118 case studies, which can also sometimes be interesting to look at when you're looking maybe at a particular region, a particular topic you are interested in. And I selected just 3 projects randomly out of the 23 projects we had here, just to give you a flavor of what was produced. This one, METROBORDER, because I think the issue, the topic as such, will still be taken up, or will again be taken up and be interesting in the Luxembourgish presidency that we have ahead of us. And this project looked in particular at cross-border metropolitan regions, focusing on the greater region, where Luxembourg, but also regions in Belgium, France, and Germany are part of, and the Upper Rhine region at the Swiss, French, and German area. And looking at the particular development opportunities of these regions, because very often these cross-border areas are associated with particular barriers or challenges that they have to deal with in their development. And this project tried to identify the opportunities and the potentials that these regions also possess, and to turn these then into something positive for their further development. So the project also provided analytical support for strategy building and for aiming at creating polycentric metropolitan regions across borders. And it also looked at a variety of other regions, not only the Upper Rhine and the Greater region, but some other case study regions in that respect throughout Europe. Then, there are parts missing here. The policy project, that is one of the targeted analyses that looked at 5 specific cities. These were Vienna, Budapest, Bratislava, Ljubljana, and Prague. And here the stakeholders of these cities worked together with the researchers to identify the specific competitive and cooperative aspects between the 5 cities. So in principle, the cities have already had a history of working together with one another and cooperating, but they wanted to find out where there might be additional potential to strengthen their cooperation. And also by looking at both the polycentricity issue and also the metropolization issue, they wanted to see how they can really also improve the individual metropolitan development and also the metropolitan development in this Central European macro region. So the project created up-to-date metropolitan profiles and also looked into opportunities for sustainable urban development at the macro regional and also at the individual city level. Then one of our latest Priority 2 projects is SEMIGRA, which looked at the consequences of selective migration in peripheral rural regions in Europe. So selective migration meaning that it's, in that case, particularly young women leaving rural regions and moving to the cities where they find better opportunities for getting education, finding jobs. And looking at the consequences that then the regions that they leave are struggling with. And they tried to identify similarities among these regions and also differences to see then which kind of strategies could be built to tackle these specific challenges that these regions are trying to cope with. Lessons learned here from the Priority 2 projects. First of all, our impression was really that there was a huge interest out there from stakeholders for this type of project, and that the results that were created by the researcher, that they were really being used. So what we did was also that we asked stakeholders, once the projects were closed, a couple of months later or a year later, to give us feedback on how they made use of the project results, what worked quite well for them, maybe what didn't quite work so well. And the feedback we got was really quite positive in the sense that stakeholders reported back that they really made use of these results in building new development strategies, in working on policy documents. So these results were used on different levels. Also, both researchers and stakeholders found the collaboration with one another really fruitful, and very often also this was just a first step in continuing the cooperation and in further working together then on other projects or other issues. On the other hand, it was sometimes a bit difficult for these projects to really directly use existing ESPON results, which was one of the preconditions for these projects, that they should make use of existing ESPON results already, because sometimes the data was not really there on the particular level that they needed the data to work with, so sometimes additional analytical work was required to really be able to use the results. Then also here, I think it was less than with Priority 1, but still we got the feedback that the focus of these projects should be a bit better defined somehow, sometimes to make it really very, very clear what was expected from researchers, because also sometimes it was quite demanding what was expected within maybe a limited period of time. And then one point which also we clearly intend to take up, but I think Peter will probably talk about that tomorrow, is that it was felt that it took quite a while from the moment that stakeholders had put in their project idea, so had expressed their interest for a particular project, until then the project was really up and running and some first results were produced. So it was a bit time consuming really there, and there we are trying to be a bit quicker in the future. And with that, I'm handing over to my colleague Peter. It's monitoring first, right?
Let's start with the monitoring and tools.
Yep.
It's fine, Gavin. Thanks, Michaela. Thank you very much, and good afternoon. While Gavin, excuse me, and Michaela has talked about what we actually has produced, I will talk about how we tried to make it possible to use what we have produced. And to start, I will talk about our tools, our toolbox, our different monitoring systems that has been developed. And of course, as already indicated, these have been put in place in order to support the preparation of effective territorial policy, strategy and planning processes. And it has been maintained and updated continuously, so you could, stakeholders, policymakers, assess and monitor territorial development dynamics in relation to territorial policy objectives at European level. And we have also had ambition, of course, that besides the stakeholders, policymakers, to make use the tools to make ESPON available to a wider public. And in that way stimulate the use of indicators, data, and tools that we provide. And once again, we have an overview here of different themes and tools that we have been working with and producing. It touches upon issues like demography, telecommunication, ICT, territorial potentials, mapping tools, and territorial indicators, territorial monitoring, etc. The fact and figures around this particular priority, priority 3, we have had 17 projects, and we have produced 19 tools or guidelines. Of these 17 projects, we have had 10 subsidy contracted projects. And this is what most of you have been used to. We have had 7 calls, we had 45 proposals submitted, and 41 research partners. But perhaps more importantly now for the future, we have also been running 7 service contracted projects. We have had 21 different actions, and we have had 35 partners involved. And the difference, of course, here with the service contract is that you work with it within a much more limited time, and the monitoring is much harder, and at worst there can be some penalties applied if things are not delivered within the time frame that has been agreed upon. And most of you already know that all of the projects ESPON will run next year, from next year on, will be service contracts. Some examples most of you know is the database. We've had two versions of that. M4D is the latest one, and we now have a huge set of data and indicators that can be used, and the tool is trying to help you be innovative in the way you can apply these different data. One of the latest projects that has delivered in December is the European Territorial Monitoring System, which has a special focus on the Baltic Sea region, and it tracks all the major policy initiatives during the last EU program, and where you can have a in-depth analysis of territorial evidence on key developments, trends in European regions, specific type of regions, and metropolitan regions, etc. We also developed a project called City Bench, where we allow for even private investors to be able to go in and check a particular city, how it's doing on a specific issue, whether it's demography or it's GDP, and compare with other cities around Europe. The lessons learned in Priority 3 is, first of all, positively, that it has contributed significantly to the ESPON 2013 program, and by producing useful toolkits to both projects as well as policymakers, but as I also said, to a wider public. The real strength of the monitoring and tools projects was that they had a specific focus on a particular issue, which meant that the research carried out was closely targeted. Furthermore, many policymakers consider the deliverables too difficult to access and make use of in an easy and intuitive way, even if we tried hard. So this is something that we will continue working on, and ensure that the output of the monitoring and tools projects are more concrete and easy to use and access. Then I will switch to the final presentation here. Everything works. Should be this one. Okay. Priority 4, another way of making use of ESPON. Instead of using tools here, we're using people. And we do it through the capitalization, excuse me. Thanks. Okay. Two legs we're resting on in this sense is the capitalization made by ESPON itself and our service providers. And then we have the capitalization made by our ECPs, the transnational networking activities. We start with our own endeavors within capitalization. They have, of course, been made to disseminate and capitalize as much as possible on ESPON findings and results. We have tried to develop and to make possible for stakeholders to be directly involved and feel an ownership for what ESPON is producing at different European level. We have been supported by three key activities. It's the publications and the events and the transnational capitalization done by the ECP, which I'll get back to. In terms of publication and events, it has been a significant program. We have produced up to 60 major publications, and we have carried out 30 events. I don't know if there's still some out there, but all the publications and all our reports that have been produced is to be found on this USB key that we have produced, and hopefully there's still some left. If not, we have back home, so tell me, and we will send it to you. Well, the aims of the transnational networking activities has been similar to ensure that there is a transnational capitalization of ESPON, but in this case we have used the ESPON contact points that have been nominated by the member and partner states and confirmed by the ESPON Monitoring Committee. And they have all carried out specific transnational projects. And they have covered a lot of themes from transnational e-learning. We had actually two projects here who were the first in ESPON context to use e-learning as a method to bring ESPON to a wider audience. We have capitalization of ESPON concepts, and the last one, ESPON on the road, which actually involved 19 partners and over 200 individuals and did touchdowns in most parts of Europe. And I understand the ESPON on the road website is still available, even if it's not updated, but it's a good way to get informed about what these kind of activities have entailed, and in particular then the largest ECP project that we did, ESPON on the road. In total, we have had 8 projects, and we have had 30 partners, and that is 30 ECP, European ESPON contact points. And most of them have participated in between 2 and 4 projects. And the interesting thing, if you look at the ECPs, that the divide among them shows that it's 13 public authorities and 17 academic institutions. And I can assure you, having worked with them very closely, that most projects had a mix of all. So it's not that we have had some projects being very academic, some very much run by public authority mindsets. And I should have had a nice slide here about ESPON on the road, as I mentioned before, but there was some technical failure here. But once again, this was our last standalone ECP activity. They had a limited amount of money. They had a short implementation time, hardly 1 year, but succeeded to produce a project that involved a lot of partners and also spread ESPON to a wide audience. And the lessons learned from the ECP and from the transnational activity shows that the ways to involve the majority of you here, policymakers at transnational scale, should be stronger pursued. And the issues of scale should be stronger considered in the transnational capitalization of ESPON in general. And of course, you've heard it before, the language used by ESPON, not only the way we speak, the acronyms we use, the concepts we use, but also actually that we use in English. It has to be considered when you really want to reach out to a wider audience on a regional and local scale. Use of social media has boomed during this program, but there's still a lot to do. And as we have been advised that we should really take into care that the different types of social media, they have quite different target groups. So you have to bear in mind how you use this new type of media. And another point has been that to reach once again, a wider audience, events and workshops organized by the ESPON program could benefit from a wider geographic touchdown than in the previous programs. And finally, ESPON should consider cooperating more closely with other programs such as structural funds programs, URBACT and Interact. And in this way, ensure even more that we can really capitalize on the ESPON results, findings, methods, and tools. So this doesn't work. I spoke about it, but the text is wrong to the picture, so sorry for that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot again once more to ESPON team. And as we heard several times today, the capitalization could be a keyword for also and key matter to discuss about the next coming ESPON program 2030. Because for sure, when we are talking about the targeted analysis, it's always much more easier to address the issues and to find to whom this could be addressed. For instance, like a TMO project, is objective of that project is to make a tool for assessment of Baltic Sea region strategy. It's a quite concrete objective, and then that's much more easier to understand how to capitalize those knowledges. But when we are talking about the applied research teams, or we are discussing the ESPON tools, there is a question about the stakeholders, because the one thing is to address the information to professionals, the sectoral professionals, which are aware about the details and want to be precise as much as possible. Then you have a general public or researchers, that's another audience, and then you have a policymakers. And for sure there should be the discussion that those messages could be different. And now I would like to address questions to you. You have heard the lessons learned from the ESPON team experiences. Again, it's during the consultations with the stakeholders for sure. But now I would like to ask you, have you any experience how these ESPON results up to now is used for the national policy making or even transnational, or even on DG, on EU level? So please be free to raise the hands, and we will bring the microphone to you. We just would like to initiate discussion between the next interactive session when we will have in-depth discussions on this. So please, don't be afraid to express your experience, even if it's negative or positive, whatever. So please, Jānis, come. Yeah, okay.
My name is Territorial. It's open? Yes?
Yeah, okay.
Is it not? Have a very...
Doesn't work?
Well, I'm a great speaker.
Yeah. Okay, let's try to do your best.
Used to big audiences. Short experience in South Tyrol, in Italy. My name is Pietro Ciolotti, T33, and as ex-ante evaluators of a regional program, we proposed to use ESPON evidences, and it was accepted immediately. I think it was also one of the reasons why. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Doesn't work?
No. But can you follow me?
Yeah.
For me, it's a great pleasure to speak. So very short experience in Italy, in South Tyrol, and the use of ESPON evidence was very much appreciated by the managing authority. We were in that case an ex-ante evaluator, and it is South Tyrol, an Italian territory where German is a working language. So we worked together with Kai, it was an additional pleasure, and we used ESPON evidences, and this was appreciated in the phase of the regional operational program design. So this is a positive experience that I can mention.
So, thank you very much. Latvia can join to your opinion, because we have made use of town project for our setting up our presidency program, and as well as ESTADOR project for the drafting terms of reference for maritime spatial plan. So, Alexandrs, please.
It's a Lithuanian experience, not so directly to spatial planning, but what spatial planning could contribute to national interests of environment protection, actually climate change. And we had a particular project on possible influence on the space development with regard to climate change, and when it was a national strategy for the climate change produced, so we contributed to the ESPON knowledge and used ESPON maps concerning Baltic Sea region and in particular our country on what could be expected from this climate change for our territory. So I can say it was a national strategy using ESPON product directly. So thanks, ESPON.
Any reflections? So, okay, please.
Good afternoon. I'm coming from Alentejo, Portugal, and I participated in last ESPON program, and I think ESPON network and results will only be useful if politicians receive a strong and objective message that spatial planning not only matters, but it's essential. And so I think a lesson learned is that we should have a real assessment tool to evaluate what measures were taken by politicians as a consequence of ESPON program and approaches, and how are they now changing our territories. Thank you.
The another positive experience. So we can only have positive reflections until now.
Yes, and does it work?
Yeah.
So capitalizing ESPON results is a very big challenge, and in order to do it you have to use multiple strategies. First of all, you have to be updated with the ongoing agenda on the national level, on the European level, and on the regional or local level, and you have to you have to be able to select the data, the results, and fit them to this ongoing agenda, and even go further, go to the try to see what the public debate is about, and feed this evidence into the public debate that is currently going on in a particular country or in a particular region. This is how you can reach out to the wider public, which I think is the biggest ESPON challenge. And also on a personal level, what works and what doesn't work is that people learn through interaction and stakeholders learn through interaction. So we need to provide an opportunity for the stakeholders to learn about ESPON results by doing some kind of workshop activities. And from our perspective and from the ECP projects, this kind of tool is probably the most efficient and works out the best. And another thing with the social media, it's really good to reach out to some kind of intermediary institutions like NGOs or public debate facilitators to be able to connect you to broader media and some opinion leaders in each of countries. And to do this, you have to put yourself in multiple positions and multiple roles, as a researcher, as a negotiator, as a knowledge broker, and it's a very demanding thing to do, and not all of types of institutions have the capacity to do it. So maybe.
Thank you very much. It was a proposal how to make new channels to provide the information in more targeted way.
Hello, I'm Neil Adams from London South Bank University, and we were involved in 2 targeted analysis projects. I'm glad Michaela made the point about being a problem sometimes with long lead-in times, because we had a particular problem with one of our projects. By the time the project actually started, all our stakeholders had disappeared, either retired, been made redundant, or whatever. So it took us a long time to actually get that project, up and running, to actually find stakeholders within those institutions who were prepared to take on the task. So I think it does depend very much on individual personalities within the stakeholder organisations. If an individual personality in an influential position is enthusiastic about ESPON, that makes things very difficult. But if that person leaves, then that can cause problems. And I think certainly in the sort of situation we're in today, we have very fragile stakeholder coalitions, certainly in the context of the financial crisis, public sector cuts. Many public authorities are now sort of cutting back what they can actually do simply to their core activities. So I think that's just a problem, I think, that we all need to bear in mind for the next programme.
Thank you for an opinion. Any other reflections here? And then, please.
Sorry again, I was short, but I want to add another element. So I'm reflecting on this, why it was easier in this territory in South Tyrol than in other ones, according to our experience. I think why it was easier to propose territorial evidence on a European scale. I think I have reflected on the features of this territory. So it is a territory where there is a majority, an Italian territory where there is a majority of German-speaking inhabitants. And in their SWOT analysis, there were comparisons with 2 more countries, so with Austria and Germany. This is the way they think. So they compared their territory to other territories in other European countries, being a cross-border and multilingual territory. And also the language, the point of the language was mentioned. We produce the documents in English, and they are used to deal with other languages. So they have 2 languages. So it was a 3rd language, could be considered as a funny point, but it was stimulating, and it was not something preventing the use of these materials. Okay, so I think that these were facilitating elements, and them reflecting on how to transfer these elements in other experiences.
Okay, please pass the microphone then. Okay.
Okay. I would like to highlight the role, the real role of capitalization, because the ECP figure is it was not only translator, but was the mediator between different knowledge systems. And it was not only a facilitator in the language knowledge, but for example, all of us in this network made the blunder check revision. So nobody in alternative of us know well the ESPON applied research or target analysis or platform, because we was constricted to read all these documents and discuss between us if the suggestion, policy recommendation, addresses were right for our countries, our regions, or it was necessary to development or integrate with the other question. So this is a real added value of the ESPON. And in Italian experience, ESPON is very used from research, young research that help to learn, to educate young research to the place evidence. And is no perfectly used by the regional development programs, operative programming plans, and no used by policymakers, because it's a constriction into the operational program. So in our experience by ESPON on the road, for example, we synthesize at the end of a program the main processes that could help our countries, but not necessarily they entered in the policy programming that our countries present at the European Commission, discuss and negotiate the flexibility investment that previously we discussed. So this is an important reflection for the future of ESPON, because the communication dissemination cannot left to the single project, but is a common system of knowledge that we can use together.
So any reflections from ESPON team? Something to... Okay. Who else wants to...
Thank you. I'm Roger Milego from the Autonomous University of Barcelona, and I would like to jump from this regional or national perspective to the European one, because I can speak as a partner of topic centers of the European Environment Agency, and we can say that we've been using ESPON results, and at the same time ESPON is benefiting also from data and information that the European Environment Agency is producing. So this is a bidirectional and synergic interaction, which I think is very interesting, and which stresses and highlights the importance of open and free flows of information in Europe.
That's some kind of win-win experience, how to work together. So then, Gavin.
Yeah, I suppose just to give some feedback on the comment, I think a lot of the comments which I've heard just there are well known to us. I mean, we have challenges in terms of capitalization, in terms of making sure that ESPON research is policy relevant and it's delivered in a timely fashion, making sure that it's useful to politicians at a high level, and how we track its usefulness. So I think a lot of I don't want to talk too much about the new program, because I know Peter will speak about this again tomorrow. But a lot of these reflections, and they were highlighted in the lessons learned there, have been absorbed in the thinking ahead for the new program. So the rationality behind the new program is to, in the best means possible, to try and respond to these challenges in terms of, especially around capitalization. I agree the issues around, for example, the target analysis were a huge success from this program. And I think one of the lessons we've learned in terms of applied research, which I spoke about, is that the use of case studies needs to be not just a simple empirical desktop analysis case studies, but it needs to actually involve researchers sitting down with policymakers, because this is the key way of capitalizing. Is actually, I know this for myself from being a lead partner on the KIPCAS project, the positive interaction we had with policymakers by actually sitting through a process with them and developing it with them. So I think, for example, that's one lesson in terms of applied research, that case studies be much more interactive with policymakers. So I think these are all the lessons that these are not unknown to us, this kind of feedback. And I think Peter will speak maybe more tomorrow about how the new program in the future will respond to these challenges.
By saying that, I think we can conclude this session, and then we can ask Kai to present you how the next exercise will be done, to go in deeper into this discussion process, how to capitalize the ESPON results in future.
Okay, thank you very much, and very briefly, I won't keep you long from your coffee. Basically, the discussion we had right now will be deepened and continued looking at, did ESPON make a difference? How did it do that? And what kind of lessons do we draw from that for the next program? And for that, you have these 3 workshops. And on your badges, which I don't now have, you have a colored dot, or you should have a colored dot. And those that are having a green dot, they are allocated or have allocated themselves to workshop number 1, which is on the uptake in European policy development with a focus on cohesion policy, territorial impact assessment. And that workshop will be run on the ground floor, and I guess people will guide you through the exact room. And the ground floor, after the coffee break, takes the elevator down. The second workshop, for those people that have a red dot on their badge, will be on the EU presidencies and how they make use of ESPON, and have a particular focus on small and medium-sized urban areas, territorial visions and scenarios, saying those topics and how they are used at the working level of EU presidencies. And I guess that will be quite a rich discussion. This workshop will be on that floor and in that part of the building. Thanks for the directions. That part, yes. So this room will be split, so those people have to go over there. And the final workshop with the yellow dots, which will be that part of the room, is then on the outreach to national and regional local authorities with a focus on cross-border metropolitan development and urban development, and you will be here. The workshops will be run as fishbowl, but as they're kind of small variations how that is run, I would leave that to the moderator of the single fishbowls to actually introduce you how he or she is doing the workshop. But again, quite an active participation expected, so grab enough coffee to have a lot of discussions and then be back on time. As the room here will be split into 2, you have to take all your belongings with you for the coffee break. Everything that is still in the room will be collected by the Latvian Presidency, and you will find it on eBay on Monday. So please take all your belongings with you and be back in about half an hour from now in your workshop room.
Just one small notification. Don't forget about the invitation on behalf of Jūrmala City Council for the dinner. Will be held in a hotel nearby here. It's some 5 minutes from here by foot, and so I believe you have all the necessary information with you in these folders. So don't forget about to be at 8 o'clock. Yeah.
Just one more thing about the dinner. We can meet in the lobby 15 minutes to 8 and walk a huge company together, not to get lost. If it's easier for you. That's our offer. You can take it, or you can try to have a bigger circle through the seashore and so on. But 15 minutes to 8, we will collect you downstairs in the lobby and go together.